Well, this is it for the OV10 Bronco from Hangar 9. There's still lots to do, but it's all the detail work on this beautiful aircraft. Thanks guys for tuning in. There is a playlist link down below. If you're just finding this build series, you can start from the beginning by clicking on that playlist link. But let's dive back in to wrapping this aircraft up. Last video we finished with doing our wire connectors on the wing, so the wing section's all done. Last thing to do is the other side of our Ashlock connectors, going to the various things in the center fuselage section. So that is the final thing we need to work on to get this wing connected to the fuselage. So everything's pretty straightforward. We've got everything labeled. So essentially what's going to happen here is we're going to take these Ashlock connectors and we are just going to do each of our leads up to be the specific length that they need to be. So flap 1, flap 2, left aileron, and left light for the wingtip. So when we put that connector in this portion of the fuselage, we will plan out each of those leads to go to the appropriate section that they need to go to. All right, so preparation to get our leads all done up for the fuselage side. So each one of these leads is sort of a specific length depending on where they're going to. So we've got some of them coming through the through fitting, underneath, and then to the central box. Some of them are coming to the gear controller. Some of them are going to the SE6, which is our door plug-in, and then of course our lighting controller, which is on that side right there. So they're all specifically sized for that. And these are all ready to go now. So what we're going to do to prepare this now is we're going to get our label installed on each of the leads and then get our power box or servo lead installed on this side. Now some of them, like our lights, those are going to have, as an example, the light going to the back end on the horizontal stab. We've got our extension here, and this will have these guys soldered together, and then this will go right into the lighting controller. All right, we got some good news regarding Ashlock connectors. So many people ask me where I get the Ashlock connectors from, and by the time this video comes out, we should have them listed on our website. So the Ashlock connectors that we use, 3, 6, 9, 12s, and the pins will be listed on our website. Again, by the time this video comes out, they should be there. So check it out, thelightersideofrc.com. Thank you guys for supporting the channel and the lighter side of RC. All right, we just had a special delivery from Joe at RC Custom 3D Printing. But before we talk about that, it is giveaway time. I'm gonna pull out what Joe brought us for a giveaway for the channel and for you guys in this video. So let's take a look at this amazing giveaway. Thank you, Joe from RC Custom 3D Printing, for this giveaway item. It is awesome. All right, guys, so Joe brought one of his custom fuel stations that he has come up with. Joe's done quite a few fuel stations for us and for various people around the world, and this is one of his new affordable fuel stations. This one is suitable for gas, for Jet A, for kerosene, for diesel. It's sort of set up for gas, and of course we're dealing with an electric plane, but that's okay, because you guys deserve a giveaway. So anyways, this comes with everything you see here. The cool thing about this fuel station is it's still using a Graylor pump. Graylor pumps are the ones that the other fuel stations that everybody knows, Jersey Modeler, which I'm also a dealer for, installs, and it's kind of the go-to fuel pump. It is the one that just works and works and works. I had a fuel station, one of my very first fuel stations I bought, and this is going back like 12 or 14 years ago, had a Graylor pump. It's still being used today. I gave it away to somebody because as I was getting new ones. Anyways, I digress. This fuel station gets powered with a 6 to 12 volt battery. Everything's labeled there, battery straps on the bottom. You've got your plug-in here. There's an XT60 connector that comes with it. In, out, speed control, awesome. So, how do you win this awesome fuel station? Well, What you need to do to enter this contest is 3 things. Number 1, you need to be a subscriber of the channel. So hit that subscribe button down below. That's step number 1. Step number 2, you need to give this video a thumbs up. So there's a thumbs up thing on the bottom of this screen. Hit the thumbs up button. Step number 3, you need to make a comment on this video using the word fuel, F-U-E-L. Be creative with it. Doesn't really matter what you say, but you have to make a comment with the word fuel, F-U-E-L, F-E-U-L, however you spell fuel. So make a comment with the word fuel down below, be creative, but the winner of this fuel station will be picked from the commenters down below. Again, you have to be a subscriber, you have to have given this video a thumbs up, and you have to use the word fuel in the comments down below. We will announce the winner or pick the winner probably about a week to 2 weeks after this video comes out, and the winner will be announced in one of our future videos. So you have to keep an eye out for that. I am going to limit this to people in North America. So you have to be in Canada or the US as well. Reason for that is shipping on this thing somewhere else would be a little bit ridiculous. So that's it. Thank you again, RC Custom 3D Printing, for providing our fuel jug, fuel system for this giveaway. Thanks, guys. Let's get back and take a look at this amazing cockpit that Joe did up as well. All right, so one of the primary reasons for Joe's visit today was to drop off our custom cockpit, which he did up. So this cockpit has 2 Warbird pilots with movable heads. So there is servo connectors in the bottom. We'll touch on that as we get them installed. So beautiful work. Joe went and redid a bunch of the work inside the cockpit. So I'm not exactly 100% sure on what he did, but if you're building one of these planes and you want one of these cockpits, contact Joe at RC Custom 3D Printing. We gave him this a while ago and he just dropped it off, and here's what it looks like. So super cool. Wiring all over the place, just like the Bronco is. Got a bunch of details back here that is, that's been done. So great job, Joe. That is super cool. He also did up the handles as well too. So as we get into installing the Canopy Glass, we'll also be touching on the handles here as well. So we'll get into that stuff, but Joe, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for doing that. And here is Joe's site, rccustom3dprinting.com. All right, the other thing that Joe did up for us was some wing drop tanks. So these are all designed to fit on the stock pylons, and they turned out really great. So this is where the plane comes with missiles that are designed to mount on the wings, and the missiles come off and these drop tanks fit in place. So this brings it into true scale of what the owner flew when he flew this plane in real life. All right, we have been plugging away on our wiring here, so let's take a quick look through everything. So we've got all of our connectors color-coded and installed in the fuselage. So the point of the color coding is the green, for example. You've got one of one side of the connector, one of the other side of the connector. So the green connector on the wing only plugs into these guys one way. So when you plug this wing on, you plug in green to green, and then the blue ones, of course, to the blue side. Now the blue side, you've got the same setup with the Ashlocks, plus we've got another 6-pin connector here as well. So that's the primary connectors for the wing. Once we got these installed, we ran everything to its appropriate location. So all of these leads were sized perfectly, as I talked about, to just fit everywhere, which is exactly how we've done it. So everything is clean, nicely run underneath. We've got our leads for our speed controls color-coded as well too, and those are also color-coded on the center connectors that go into the fuselage. So these need to be repeatable. What we'll do is, as we progress into the setup of this plane, is we will get the plane assembled, and then we will do our connectors up here at the the motor side, and we can flip those connectors around to reverse the movement of the motor if required. But once those are done and these are always repeated the same way, then everything just works perfectly. So that stuff's all done. I'll give you a shot down the side here. So we've got our wiring nice and run down the center of the fuselage. I plugged all of our lighting wires in the controller on the left-hand side, but all of those guys are just put in random spots. We haven't figured out where they need to go yet. We'll do that later during the programming. So that stuff is good. And the next thing we're doing with our setup of everything is our battery plugins for our receiver batteries, which go right here in this the center holder. Now we've got two different connectors done up here. So these are the XT60 connectors that are available on our site. These get mounted at the front near our battery. The main lead here, of course, plugs into the central box. We used hot glue on the top of those. And also running off of this one battery, this is going to be our primary battery, battery 1, is our landing gear. So this connection goes underneath and to our LGC22 gear controller. The other battery connector, this is going to be battery number 2. Again, same system with our XT60 connector, comes back, plugs into the central box. But this battery also feeds our lighting system. So this small lead runs underneath everything and plugs into the controller for the lighting system, which is right there. So now we're going to get those guys installed in the front of the aircraft, and that is all of our wiring almost done. And there's a shot of the cockpit and glass laid in place. Now the cockpit tub, everything works well with that. One of the considerations with this setup is we kind of want to make the canopy glass sort of not permanent, semi-removable. And that's a bit of a challenge because what happens is this just sits on there, right? And we could use screws. The problem with the screws is it really distracts from the scale appearance of this whole cockpit assembly. So I've got a couple things I think I'm going to do. Number one, when we install this guy, I think I'm going to put just a layer of shoe goop on here first, and this guy will just sit on top there. Now we may end up using a couple small screws in select areas. That I don't know about yet, but this is the first step that I'm going to do. So a little bit of shoe goop along here, lay the cockpit in, or the canopy glass in place. Now we've got our handles that go through these little holes. Now that kind of doubles as, number one, it's going to hold the canopy glass in place. So that's also another step that we're going to accomplish. Probably putting some shoe goop on the side here. Those things will be held in place with shoe goop. And the reason I like to use the shoe goop or E6000 is it's strong enough to be permanent, but it's not 100% permanent. So if we really need to get that canopy glass off, you can peel it away from the shoe goop. Just trying to minimize the amount of fasteners on the outside because it's going to look ugly, and I really don't want to like permanently glue it in there. Reason for that is, let's say one of the pilots, they've got movable heads. One of the movable heads stops working, the servo stops working. So you want to be able to take that out and get it dealt with. So anyways, those are things that I'm thinking about. All right, so you really have to do this canopy in stages. So I've installed some black shoe goop along the back here and just down the side about ½ an inch. This is sitting in place now. It sits nice and snug against there, so we're just letting that do its thing. Everything else is loose. I used a 7/32 drill bit to drill through the holes in the canopy into the side of the cockpit tub, just while adding a little bit of downward pressure, and that allows the wood dowel portion here to just get installed like that. So I haven't glued those in yet because I still want access to everything. So we're going to leave that cure. We want to leave that cured because the cockpit tub, when you take it out and it doesn't have the canopy glass installed, it's flexible. But we want everything to kind of start curing and staying in the correct shape. So we're going to leave this for quite a while until that shoe goop is 100% cured, which means we're going to move on to some other things. So we can also get this fuselage front portion on one of our stands. We'll get our center pylon installed, our two little, I don't even know what they are, the things coming off the bottom there where the guns go. And we can get our drop tank pylons that go on the wings, get those installed, and the center piece for the fuselage as well. The fuselage drop tank installed, so lots to do to get everything ready. All right, and there's the wing tank installed. That looks really good. Very, very suiting for this plane. Very nice. I think it looks awesome. Stock pylons are nice, good solid fasteners. So you use a 4mm fastener. We have to extend them a little bit because they're not the stock missiles that we're using. So there is about this much material at the base of the drop tanks to go through, which is great. That means there's lots of structure there. And our pylons are good. You use, again, a 4mm stock fastener to screw the pylons to the wings using your split washers here. And we put a little bit of Loctite on them as well. Those might come off for shipping, but they're easy to install. Installing our wing pins. These pins are what join the two wing pieces together. So when you put your outside wing piece on, there's two little fasteners. And these guys are pretty easy to install. We're just taking some blue Loctite, put that on there, and they just thread in like that. And you can pretty much get them all the way down. Some of them I had to, those other two I did, had to use the pliers, but you want to get them obviously installed so they're not going to come off. So I'm just going all the way down with my hand and then giving it 1/8 of a turn just to snug it up. Those guys are installed. All right, so wings are done. Center section and both tips are finished. We've got those set aside. One other thing the kit comes with is a bunch of these little inserts here. They're just kind of rubberized inserts to protect the opening where you're putting the tool in and out of to fasten the wing together. So we've just installed those with a little bit of shoe goop. And those are all sitting apart or aside by themselves on their own table. Now we're going to take this fuselage front and we're going to get it installed on one of our Lukey stands and get our belly stuff mounted, our side pieces and our center pylon. All right, so now that our canopy did a little bit of curing on this back portion here and we've got these fasteners installed, or the handles, we were able to remove the cockpit tub. When everything is installed, kind of glued in place like this, it actually fits really nicely. So we will get back to gluing this a little bit more. And the cockpit tub out, we're now able to access our fasteners for the gun pods. I guess we'll just call them that. And our center pylon is accessible through the hole right there and right there. All right, next up with the canopy and cockpit and everything removed, laid it on its side on the workbench, pulled out this handle right here and lifted up the glass and basically installed shoe goop from here all the way to that joint right there. Did both sides and then got the cockpit reinstalled one more time. Now as I've mentioned already, it doesn't matter whether you're working on a turbine jet or an aircraft like this, you want to make sure that you're curing something like this, like we're gluing the canopy glass to the cockpit tub. You want to make sure you're doing that with it in position. It's very important because you don't want it to sit on a workbench and cure in a funny shape. That's ultimately what it's about. If it cures in a funny shape, it's not going to go back on the aircraft well. So again, we leave this to do its thing, to cure for a while. We'll plug away on some other things where possible. One of the next things to get kind of queued up here is our little back dome piece thing. I think that's where we're going to mount the 900 receiver, I believe. So we'll see how that works out. What I'm thinking about doing is putting the receiver in the actual pod and then just having the servo lead plug in and out of the receiver. And that's going to allow, if we need to remove this portion for transport, it's easy to remove for transport. The other thing with the manual is it talks about the gun pods and the center pylon there. You should remove those for transport. This can't support the weight. These can't support the weight of the model unless you have some sort of cradle system or put foam underneath, depending on obviously your results may vary. All right, so while we wait for the canopy to do its thing, we are working on the additional pieces on the fuselage. So got the wing installed, or the center part of the wing, and getting the, whatever this thing is, installed. So you can push it on too far. So it can sit on about this far. What we're doing is we've taped the top joint there and just kind of running it level up and down. So I've done that, and I marked out with a pencil line here. The tape, or the point of the tape, is to let you know where your plywood is doubled up inside the fuselage. It also matches up with the screw holes as well too, so that's fairly straightforward. But we're gonna get this drilled and installed. Once this is installed and ready to go, we can pull it off then, and we can start working on some additional details on this piece. All right, so we've taken our rear fuselage piece off here, and we're gonna make a vent in this guy. So that is the bottom. Now we got two options. I was thinking initially of just putting like a round hole or a shape of hole and putting some screen on the inside. I like that idea, but if we can make this be a little bit more subdued, that's the way we're gonna do it. So I've just drawn a shape using pencil. Just to give you an idea of the actual size here, we're 3 inches at the leading portion and 2 inches at the trailing portion. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this portion intact. We're going to cut out around this portion, and that's going to be folded in. So essentially that is going to create a flap like this, and we're just going to put 2 triangles of material on the side, and that's basically going to create an exit area. Now the point of that is we want to get some airflow over top of our ESCs. Our ESCs are mounted right kind of in this area right there. Now there is a fairly large opening in the nose gear. So the nose gear has a cover on the inside, but the whole back of the nose gear is allowing air to move into the fuselage. So if we can allow an exit point at the back of the fuselage, that's going to allow air to run through the fuselage. If we don't put an exit at the back of the fuselage, air is just going to come in, pressurize the fuselage, and that's it. It's a pretty slow moving plane, so there's not a ton of pressure in there, but if we create an exit path, like I said, that takes care of some air movement inside the fuselage. And that is the point of doing this guy. All right, so here is what I did with our little vent thing that I was talking about. So as you can see, cut around the perimeter, bent that up, and put 2 triangles of carbon fiber ply in there and spot glued it with some CA. Put some aero epoxy over top of it, painted them gray, and now we got a good vent on the tail section. So what I'll do now is I'm going to get my 900 receiver mounted in here, basically just using Velcro. The actual antennas we will mount with Gorilla Tape, and which is like duct tape, but it's more sticky. And then we'll be able to just have a lead going from this tail section into the fuselage, which will make things clean, easy to remove this for transportation. You can always tell when nobody's home because good old Golden Luna ends up in the shop. All right, so the tail section here is completed. We do have to add some connections for getting this connected to our fuselage. But that's pretty straightforward. So we've got the spirally connector, which we're going to have a servo connector mounted right here. So when you install this, you just take the spirally connector, plug it into the servo connector, and that will have the lead going into the central box. So that is the primary lead. This one here is just an EXT lead. So I'm going to have this just kind of tuck up here into a clip, and that will just be sitting there. Purpose of that guy ultimately is when the owner gets this, he can bind this 900 receiver. If we leave this thing on for transport, then he can bind it through this. When he's done binding it to his radio, conceivably he could just pull this 900 out, and it would be, it's not doing anything other than having the EXT port. So, but that thing's ready to install, and we're going to pull the wing back off the fuselage, get this guy installed, and then we will get our plugins sorted out. All right, so the tape wasn't exactly holding everything nice and tight, so I took the canopy off and put some clamps on here. As soon as I put the clamps on here, goop that was right here squished out, so that's a good thing. We can always get rid of that, that's not a problem. So just leaving this the way it is to let it cure. The rest of it's a pretty tight fit. Like, we don't have much flopping around. This area right here was the worst. It was kind of sticking off. Obviously these two guys help hold everything in place. We've got goop up to here, and the rest of it I think will be a pretty easy fit. So once that cures, we can finish off the rest of it. Next thing to do is to get our plane turned on for the first time. We've got our 900 plugged in there, back at the back. And the way we've got the setup so far in the Jetty is we've got our primary receiver, you can see there. There's no secondary receiver, which is the middle spot. And then our 900 is the bottom blue light. So we've got a primary and a 900. The next thing I'm doing is getting our RC switch set up on our system. So all I do is from the main menu, we're going to go Model, Device Explorer, into RC switch. Now the plane's not turned on right now, but we can get all this stuff set up. So we enable the RC switch. Now we're going to pair the RC switch. So you're essentially treating this just like a receiver. So we're going to put our bind plug in the EXT port. We're going to power it from another port. So make sure checking polarity, and on the radio, hit pair RC switch. It's done its thing. We can pull our bind plug out. Then what we do is we go to the transmitter control switch. Now I'm just setting this up for my own self, how I would set everything up. When the owner gets it, turns his radio on for the first time, he can at that point change all the controls. Very easy to do with Jetty. So I'm going to do this guy here. So my on is always towards me. Turn model on, yes. And then we can also add our audio files to let us know when this is turned on and off. All right, so we have turned the plane on. We got our gyro programmed. I do have a video, a standalone video on programming the Cortex with this type of setup, so I'm not going to cover that. So anyways, that's programmed, that's done. Our on-off switch, of course, is installed into there, so that's good. And when I turned this on, I did a couple changes here because, you know, as you're working through this, your wiring changes and such. So, like for example, our E314 port, that was set to an EX bus port. I changed it to a servo output, which controls our lights. Port 13 is going to be our pilot, so we're going to take a lead from there, and that's going to run to the front essentially. Port E1R3, that is changed to a receiver because that's where our 900 plugs in, and R2 will be automatically a receiver port because that's just what it is. So that stuff is done. Next thing I'm doing here is synchronizing our doors. So if you have been following this build, I had the doors paired up with our gear switch. So now that we've got the gear operating on the aircraft, we want to make sure the doors are synchronized properly. So when we hit gear down, we want them to open basically quickly. And when we hit gear up, we want about a 10-second delay on the doors. So this is what we're going to do. So I've done some of this work already, but we're going to go advanced. We're going to go into logical switches. I've created one called door. It is operated by our gear switch, which is SB. So we'll go in here and you can see the control is only our gear switch.
1 minute.
So no control 2, no conditions. Essentially the only condition here is you've got a hard on off and a 10-second delay. So when we go gear up, it waits 10 seconds and you'll see this change after 10 seconds to plus 100%. And all this is doing is controlling this logical switch saying after 10 seconds, when we hit gear up, it operates. So with that done, we have our logical, here I'll go back in here and show you what happens. So when we go gear down, it operates right away. So now what we'll do is we're going to go model, we're going to go to function assignment, and now we're going to go down to our doors, which used to be controlled by SB, which is our gear switch. And now we're going to clear that. We're going to add our logical switch, door, as the control. So now our doors are controlled by logical switch 1. Now that means that all of our doors, so 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 16 are all controlled by that switch. So now if we turn the plane on, the gear's in the down position, we go gear up, gear's going to come up. I just assume that 10 seconds is going to be fine. We'll play with it. So we need to add a little bit more time there because our gear wasn't actually down all the way. So all we do for that is we're going to go back into our logical switch and we're going to make this 12.5 seconds is the most we can do it. And then what else we can do is we can also go into each of those servos and slow down the movement in one direction. All right guys, so I have added some additional programming on our LGC22, the Chikoi gear controller. Went in there, up the amperage, and also with our nose doors, we've got a 12.5 second delay on the logic switch. And then I went in and slowed these doors on the close function by 10 seconds. So you'll see what I'm talking about here. So gear's gonna come up. And then just as this landing gear sneaks in the fuselage, the doors start to close. There we go. So 10 seconds to close the doors, which is great. And then I added a 1 second servo slow on the opening. We could slow that down more, but there we go. The gear pretty much starts coming down right away, so that is perfect. So the other benefit to running the Chikoi LGC22 gear controller is you can go in with your programming box. If you've got one of the new ones, like the turbine ones, you can use that as well. This is just the old one, of course. And you can change the motor amperage. So the cutoff amperage, I went right to the max, which is 2.5 amps. And then you can also do motor delays and adjust that stuff, which is nice because then these gears work a lot better and more consistently. So that's part of probably the primary reason why we went to the LGC22. The other nice thing about using this controller in this setup versus the stock one is when you turn the system off, this also turns off. It doesn't stay on. A lot of these gear controllers, like this guy that comes with them from Phoenix Models, when there's power on here and no receiver signal, it's still parasitic, so it's still drawing power from your batteries. I mean, it's fine, you can unplug it, but I'd rather have it just an on-off switch with the aircraft and not have to worry about unplugging the battery. All right guys, and that wraps up video number 5 in the build series of the Hangar 9 OV10 Bronco. Don't forget our giveaway in this video. If you want to be entered for the giveaway, number 1, you need to be a subscriber. Number 2, you need to give the video a thumbs up. Number 3, you need to make a comment with the word fuel in it in the comment section of this video. The winner will be chosen from those comments, and you need to have fuel in your comment. So make sure you do that. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you RC Custom 3D Printing for making the beautiful details on this aircraft, and also for providing the fuel system for the giveaway on this video. Thanks guys for watching, and we will see you in the next video.